thing that I would like to do is to take a moment to set our intention for today. Because today we're here to explore the 7 tenets of creativity. And these are principles that can help awaken and nurture our divine creative power. Okay. And these tenets will guide us in embracing a more expansive, liberating, and authentic creative journey. And I truly believe in these tenets. And and if you want to know where I got them from, it was from my life as an educator, which is something I forgot to mention when we started. I'm also an educator, and I was hired on the college level to teach a course called Creativity and the Arts in the Early Childhood Classroom. And as I delved more into how do we teach people creativity, which I don't think we really do. I think we open people up to their own creative nature and how they can expand their own creativity, what creativity means. And like yesterday, debunking some of those myths we have about creativity that make some people like they're not creative. But for today, I really want to focus on these 7 principles that I discovered as an educator. And this actually came from the text that I used in that class that I kind of expanded and fleshed out a little bit more so that it pertained to not just children, excuse me, being creative, but adults as well. You know, Picasso had a saying that we are all born artists. The trick of it is to remain an artist during your lifetime because there are so many factors that work against us retaining our childlike ability to be creative. Okay. And so when we look at these 7 tenets, realize that part of what they're supposed to do is help us recapture that youthful exuberance for creating. Okay. And to really let ourselves go. So let's set our intention for today that this is exactly what we are trying to embrace as we think about these 7 tenets. So let's just close our eyes for a minute. And once again, put your right hand on your womb, your left hand on your heart, and take a few deep breaths. And now let us strive to, as we exhale the next few times, to release any fears or doubts that we have about our own creative potential, our own creative journey. And then as we inhale, let us invite in the energy of the divine creativity to fill our entire beings with love, light, joy, and contentment. Okay. Our intention is to fully embrace and embody these 7 tenets, allowing our creativity to flourish. And so it is. Okay, so let's get to our 7 tenets. A first tenet, and tenet just means principle, okay? It's a fancy word. You know, sometimes as educators, we really always have to have some kind of fancy word for plain and simple things. I admit to it. I know I'm guilty. So let's keep it simple. These are just principles that we want to abide by so that we can boost our creativity. Okay, the first tenet is understanding divergent thinking versus convergent thinking. And I know sometimes when we hear that word divergent, we think of the book and movie series. And in some ways, this is exactly what we're talking about. Being able to be different, allowing ourselves to have different thoughts from everyone else, and to think in creative and innovative ways. We sometimes call that thinking outside the box, right? What we are trying to do is to break free of what is convergent thinking. And convergent thinking is basically, this is the way it's been done always, and this is what we as a society or a culture or a people or whatever, even just sometimes something as small as a group can decide on how things should be, and that anybody thinking outside of what has been decided should be the way of thinking is then looked down upon. And all this does is stifle our creativity and our impulse to create, because we've already set parameters around what we think about. We've already decided that this is the established way of doing things. And you know what? You don't get something innovative, new, fresh, or exciting if you are doing things the way things have always been done. Right? Isn't that the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. You can thank Einstein for that one. And what we're trying to do is to break free of all that and to harbor and harness our own innate creativity to allow it to flourish and grow and break free of the constraints that we have placed on it, either because we want to fit in, we are afraid maybe we'll look silly if we come out with something new or different. Maybe, we've always been told this is how things are and they can't be any different. And so we get stuck in thinking of things the way they've always been done. Divergent thinking is essential for creativity because it allows us to explore a vast array of new possibilities without judgment or limitation. And that's a real key to divergent thinking, is to stop judging what you're thinking about, or thinking that it's crazy, or thinking that it can't be done, or thinking that maybe it could be done, but you are not the person to do it. So what we really want to be able to do is to set our ideas free. Now, that doesn't mean there is no point to convergent thinking, that somehow that's bad. And in all aspects, we really want to stop defining our thoughts as either good or bad. We can define them as useful and unhelpful, okay? But good or bad, I think we really need to let that idea go. Because what convergent thinking helps us to do is say we come out with all these brilliant ideas for different things. There has to be some winnowing down until you get to the idea that's most useful for you. And so convergent thinking, where you are thinking about what makes sense, how can we do it, all these logical or prosaic concerns that you might have, help you winnow away some of the things that don't make sense for you. But that's not where you want to start from. You want to start from thinking as broadly and as expansively as possible, opening yourself up to the most expansive idea you can have. And sometimes it helps to think of a problem or project that you are working on. And did you allow yourself just to have free reign of thought or experience? Because not everything are we thinking about. I mean, even if you were, say, singing a song, you were going to sing a song for an event, and there are a whole lot of safe choices you could have for that, right? This is the way everybody sings it. And you could have done exactly that. Or you could have put your own spin on that song. Okay. Sometimes that works out really great. Think of Whitney Houston singing the Star-Spangled Banner. The choices she made were brilliant because she allowed her creative voice to really shine in whatever she was doing. And the other day, somebody brought up the fact that Roseanne Barr also sang the Star-Spangled Banner. Now, that was some divergent thinking on her part, and you can look up that performance if you want to, but I really don't advise it. But was it a good choice? Was what she did her best, or even a reasonable performance, even if it was divergent? So this is what we say, we can use both forms of thinking together to help us, or both forms of creating, I should say, together, or consciousness, so that you can innovate and create from the most expansive view you have of yourself and what you're trying to create. So tenet number 2 is to focus on process, not product. And what do we mean by that? When we're creating, we really want to focus on the moment when we're creating. Okay? Not what we're trying to end up with, but what are we doing right this moment? So if you are painting and you're knowing the mixture of the colors and the way that the brushstrokes fit on the canvas, you are not focusing on the joy of doing that work. You are focusing on, oh my goodness, what is the outcome going to be? And is the outcome really more important in the long run? Are we focused on the creative process, or are we only focused on results? And the problem with this is that you're supposed to be able to enjoy creativity. Creativity brings joy, growth, and learning along with the creative process. And so if you're not enjoying it, then what truly is the point of doing it? Then creativity just becomes one more routine of things to do that don't bring happiness, joy, contentment, anything to you on your creative journey, and don't serve to expand your creativity at all. Okay, and sometimes it can narrow it down. And I tell this story all the time, and this kind of story relates to many aspects of our creative journey. And that is way, 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 way back. I was a kindergarten teacher. And, you know, in kindergarten, especially back then, for every holiday, you had a holiday project for the kids to bring home. And you posted some on the bulletin board. The vast majority of everything always went home to kids for their parents, you know, to see. And the teacher in the room next to mine had the most gorgeous projects. And I couldn't get my kids to like glue like two eyes together to make a face. You know, one eye was up here, one's over there, you know, whatever. Because I would give them free range to do what the project was as they wanted to do it. Here's the supplies, here's what you need, here's, you know, I would give them an example of what I hoped it would look like at the end, but it was their creative project, so I would give them free reign to do whatever they wanted. Well, I found out one day why this teacher had such beautiful artwork all the time. She would let her kids do whatever the same way I would, and then once the kids went to lunch, she would unglue all the projects and make them exactly perfect, like the one that she did. And that's what she would send home to parents. Because it was more important to her that it looked right than that the kids had an experience of creating their own artwork. And, you know, to me, that was astonishing. Because the whole point to me of doing these projects was for the kids to express themselves, not for them to be perfect. Right? And so to me, this is the ultimate story of what not to do when you are creating. You know, don't worry about so much what's coming at the end, because all this does, again, is limit our creativity. Okay? And the idea is to engage in creative activity purely for the joy of it. Okay, how many of us really do that? You know, if we're doing something creative as an adult, it almost always a point to it, right? I'm writing a blog entry because I want to convert people to come into my program, or I want to create an artwork. Like I did the other day, I went to a site where you can create your own artwork to see if I could make a cover for one of my books that I want to come out. And to me, I wasn't creating, I was giving some prompts for it to come out. But still, it's the same idea. Why is it that we can't just, as adults, create, draw, color, sing, dance, just because we feel like it? We don't often give ourselves the time and the space to do that. And so we forget how joyous it can be to create for no reason at all. just to do it. And so this is one of the things that I hope that we will adopt once we get to the end of the challenge. We will adopt a creative routine that we can enact every day so that we keep our creative juices flowing and we create that joy in creating that we all desire. So let's get to tenet number 3, allowing for more than one answer. And I think this um, is true for almost every endeavor that we have. And this goes into the idea of that convergent thought. If everybody is thinking the same way about things, oftentimes we'll say, well, you can't do it like that. It has to be done like this. You know, I remember being in a math class years ago, and we all know how bad I am at math. But one of the kids in class, this kid David, who was really brilliant, but for some reason the teacher did not like him, and I guess maybe it was his brilliance that the teacher didn't like, because he I think these days we would have, thought of him as being neurodivergent, right? But back then he was weird, and so he would always come up with innovative ways to do math because he didn't get math the way that the teacher was teaching it. And so the teacher would deliberately um, mark him wrong for getting the right answer because he didn't go about doing it the right way. And so, luckily, this kid didn't care one way or the other what the teacher had to say about how he got to the solution of the problem. But I think we do that to ourselves all the time. If we're not doing it the right exact way, or there's only one way to um, get clients, or there's only one way to do a healing process, or there's only one way to um, behave when you go somewhere. We ruin our joyfulness of doing things sometimes because we're so set about how things should be done. Okay. And this tenet allows us to just really open ourselves up to more creativity, because creativity thrives when we recognize that multiple solutions and perspectives can coexist. Everybody doesn't have to agree. So embracing multiple answers encourages flexibility, openness, and innovation. And it allows us to explore a wider range of possibilities. So when we're thinking of a challenge that we face right now, some of the ways that we can really attack that is through brainstorming. And I think we all know brainstorming. Everybody sits around, or maybe it's just you sitting around and thinking about all the different possibilities that exist. And I encourage people to do what's called true north thinking, which is that you write down all of your ideas, no matter how silly, no matter how far fetched, no matter like if it's completely wrong. One thing you don't do is tell yourself no. Whatever comes up, you write it down. Okay? Because the brain understands the word no as a stopper. So the minute that you tell your brain, oh no, that doesn't fit the pattern, or no, that's not the right idea, or no, whatever, it begins to shut down. And the more no's you tell your brain, the more and more and more that it will shut down. And so you really just want to throw out any idea that comes into your head, no matter how ridiculous or frivolous or whatever, write it down. And once the ideas stop coming, that's when you go back and look and see, does this fit what I'm trying to do? Is a helpful idea, or is it not a helpful idea? Then you can just narrow it down until you find something that's reasonable for you, a way to be creative or innovative. Okay. And I used to do this with one of my college classes, and I would say to them, tell me what story you're talking about. And I would say, two people fall in love amid objections. Things end badly. What story am I talking about? And they will come up with all kinds of answers to that. Romeo and Juliet, or West Side Story, or all kinds of other movies or titles or books that I never heard of, and I would never say no, that doesn't fit the pattern, even if no matter how far fetched or unrealistic it was. I would write them all down, and I would notice that for classes where I never objected, I just wrote everything down. We would get so much more content, so many more answers than times in the past when I had not adopted this type of thinking. And once you say no, oh, then everyone's got to stop and think, and then you got to filter and judge. No, just throw everything out there and then see what fits later. And the same way with writing. We write with fire, write everything that we can think of um, down, and then we edit with eyes, where we go back and look through and see what actually makes sense to us, and what we want to keep and what we don't. So, is that there are some people who they read a book, if they don't read the last page first, they don't enjoy the story. If they don't know how it's going to end, they don't read the story. And some people who, if you were to show them the last page of the book, would have a heart attack. You mean telling me how it's going to end? I don't want to know that. Okay. So everybody has their own right and wrong way to do things. And this really frees us from rigid thinking and opens us to diverse methods of approaches, enhances our creative expression. So one of the great things to do is to think about what you would like to create, what you would like to bring forward, and think of many different ways of doing the same thing. So, for example, now I know we're about doing things creatively for creative sake, but sometimes you do need to be creative in order to establish a goal or complete a task. I love to do for that is to multi-purpose things that I create. So, for example, say for this particular workshop, right now I'm talking about the 7 tenets of creativity as part of a challenge to have those in this group really up their game in terms of creativity. But I've also done videos talking about the same topic. I've done blog posts about the same topic. I have spoken at conferences about the same exact topic. But was it exactly the same each time I did it? Absolutely not. Each time it was fitted to what I was, the people that I was addressing, and how at that particular moment I wanted to express these same 7 tenets. So it's important to be able to multi-use whatever comes up for you, whether it's something prosaic like cooking a meal or organizing your space, or any way that you're approaching a project. You want to embrace the variety of methods that are available to you. And that also helps boost your creativity by allowing you to expand from one method or one means to another, and enjoying the process of doing that. Because once again, the joy is what helps us along to really open ourselves up creatively. And now let's get into tenet 5, which is the freedom to make mistakes. And I think this is one of the most important tenets we can have in creativity, is that you don't have to, jump out the gate and get it right the first time. Okay. When people are inventing things, I mean, could you imagine if the very first car that Ford invented worked? Okay, why do you think we have the Model T? Because we had all these other models that came before it, before there was a workable car that could be purchased and sold, right? Think about how many drafts that the average author makes of their text, of their work, right? When we're first writing, we just want to get it out in whatever form or shape that it comes, and then edit it down into what we're actually trying to say. Things are not perfect out of the gate. And if we strive to do that, then we can fall into that trap of perfectionism, right? If it's not perfect, it's not good. And then we start to judge our own creativity. We start to judge our own creativity negatively because we're supposedly, if we're creative people, we're just supposed to, just jump out the gate with everything intact, in place, and right for whatever it is that we're doing. But by allowing us to make mistakes, we remove the fear that often stifle creativity, and it encourages us to experiment and to discover. Okay, that's really what creativity is about. Is more the discovery, the enjoyment, and the freedom for experimentation that moves us forward. And I was saying the other day that I think that's really the problem with Hollywood these days. Now, I haven't gone to the theater to a movie since I think the last Harry Potter. I think that was the last time I was actually in a movie theater. No, wait, there was something else, but whatever, right? Because I feel like there's so much repetition. If you don't have a story that sold well, that's what most films come from these days. A book that somebody wrote, they sold well, so now it's deemed profitable, and so we can make a movie out of it. Or Marvel comics that everybody loves. And I'm a Marvel fan, so I don't have anything to say about it. There's so much repetition of one idea from one place to the next place to the next place, but there is no risk taking. And to me, that's what creativity is about the ability to take risks and to do the most that you can to be innovative and to really bring forth that creative impulse that's within yourself. And so when we deprive ourselves of the ability to make mistakes, then we take that away, or we also denigrate ourselves and our creativity. We downplay it because we expect to be perfect. We expect that every time we have a thought, it's going to be so brilliant. And if it's not, then we stifle our creativity and we also shrink our own creative potential. So make all the mistakes you want. Mistakes can always be fixed. Mistakes can be a stepping stone to success, because on your way to making all of these mistakes, you are showing yourself what you don't want. And that opens you up to more of what you do want further down the road. Okay? And I think sometimes we need to celebrate our mistakes just as much as we celebrate our successes, because our mistake is showing that at least we attempted it. We risked something. We tried. And that's what creativity is about too. It's about putting yourself out there, your true and authentic self out there. And that can be scary. That can be scary, to open yourself up in ways that you haven't before. It's also very worthwhile. So now let's get to our sixth tenet, which is acknowledging effort and not just results. Okay. And I think this is one of the things that we can talk about, especially when we are talking about creating for the sake of creation, for our own enjoyment and for our own self-expression. Okay. We can acknowledge the effort that we put into something, and the effort becomes what's important. As I said, I love to sing. I love I just love to sing. I've always wanted to be a singer ever since I was a kid. I sing all the time. You can ask. My daughter accuses me of just bursting into song for no reason whatsoever. And that is my effort at creativity. Now, do I have the best voice in the world? Absolutely not. Okay, absolutely not. And does that dampen my enthusiasm and my joy for singing? Absolutely not. Okay. Do I try sometimes to really work on my voice so that it sounds better? Absolutely. I actually go on to a particular Facebook channel with a woman who gives singing lessons and how to warm up your voice and all this other stuff. because I love singing and I don't want to give people like agita having to listen to my tin voice, right? But it still does not impact my enjoyment of singing because it's not the results. It's not having a beautiful voice. It's not uh you know being a singer that's important to me. It's just that expression of singing and expression of voice. And it's really funny because if you just hear me sing stuff, regular, everyday stuff, um, but when I am like in ceremony or I'm in service to spirit, I have the most beautiful voice ever, and that really is because of the purpose of what I'm doing and what I'm trying to express and how I'm trying to aid people in healing through my voice. So, um, am I going to give up singing anytime soon? Absolutely not. Should anybody else who loves to do something, even if it's not perfect, even if it's not something you want to show the world, even if you just write fan fiction that nobody's ever going to see or whatever, that's for you to enjoy and to show your effort and to heck with whatever the results are, whether it's perfect or whether it's not perfect or whether it's even something you want to show to the public. Okay, enjoy that effort that you can put forth in your creative endeavors because that's for you. That's for your own expansion. That's for your own spiritual expansion when you do things that you love. When we talk about in spiritual circles about raising your vibration, okay, what we're really talking about is allowing the things that we truly love to come forth. And part of that is our own creative endeavor. So when we talk about raising our vibration, what do we say? Do something you love, right? Do something creative, you know, connect with spirit, connect with nature. We say all these things to raise our vibration. And so if you want to raise your vibration, creativity is part of that. Free expression of creativity is part of that. And so allow yourself that. And you will find that you have so much more momentum in your life, even around things that are not necessarily creative, right? And finally, failure is an option. It's okay to fail. And when everybody says to themselves, it's okay to fail. Because with the corollary of fear of making mistakes, fear of just not getting it all, of not being able to do what you want creatively is so scary to some people. But I want to say something to you. Dr. Seuss, who we all have read at least one Dr. Seuss book in our lifetime, when he was trying to sell his first book, and to think that it happened on Mulberry Street, he went to 63 different publishers before Random House picked him up. Okay, so first of all, imagine that there are 63 different publishers, because I think right now we have six major publishers and their imprints. But back then, you had 63 different places you could go on to get a response from a publisher. And now, what if Dr. Seuss had said at publisher number 60, I give up. I've been to 62 publishers. No one's ever going to publish my book. And he didn't go to that 63rd publisher. The world would never know Dr. Seuss. Whether you like Dr. Seuss or you don't like Dr. Seuss, however you feel about him, he's been one of the most influential children's writers of the 19th, 20th, and now the 21st century. So imagine if he had just given up. And one of the things that we can never do is give up on our dreams. We may need to modify them. Maybe we are dreaming too big or we're dreaming too small. That's why we don't get what we are going after, right? But we should never give up on our dreams. We should just figure out how we can make our dream work for us. And that is one of those parts of creativity that really focuses on what we're going to talk about tomorrow, creating from the heart, because we have to learn how to accept failure without considering ourselves to be a failure. We can't take on that mantle of I am this. We need to have the mindset and the energy set of I'm experiencing this and not that I am this. Okay. Because once we say I am, we have committed ourselves to being that thing. Okay. Like I am a diabetic. I'm not really diabetic. But when we make a statement like that, what we're saying is that there's nothing we can do about it. But if you say I'm experiencing diabetes, that's different, because many people have gone from being in a diabetic state to changing their diet and changing their supplementation, vitamins and minerals and other things that they're taking, and um, and healed that in themselves. So I would say to you that if you are not able to create what you want, um, don't say I'm a failure. Don't say I can't get it done. Don't say um, I'm not. It's not working for me. You can just say this is what I'm experiencing. I'm experiencing difficulties. I'm experiencing a hard time getting done what I wanted to do. But do not take on that mantle of I'm a failure, or sometimes the other corollary that we tell ourselves, I'm an imposter because I have not been able to complete everything that I thought I would, that there's somehow some defect there. And just continue to go for your creative dreams and figure out how it is that creativity is supposed to work with you and for you. I think we too need to shift our focus away from what we're experiencing with our mind and think of, because when people say mind, they think of what's going on in their head, right? I think to some degree we need to focus more on our consciousness, which exists in our entire body. We experience everything, creativity included, throughout our entire body. And so it sometimes when we think about what we're doing creatively, or when we focus on what we're doing creatively, we when we experience like things that come in either words, pictures, um, sounds that are all related to like the five senses we experience in our head, we think that is the like this is really the focal point, when actually it isn't. Actually, it isn't. We create from so many different points in our body that we have to be careful that we only focus on the consciousness that's in our head and not the consciousness that's in the rest of our body. Not seeing any questions right now. Let's summarize a little bit. We've explored the 7 tenets of creativity: divergent versus convergent thinking, focusing on the process, allowing for multiple answers, allowing for various methods, freedoms to make mistakes, acknowledging effort, and accepting failure. And as you leave today, I invite you to integrate these tenets into your life. Trust in your divine creative power and let these principles guide you in your creative journey. I would also like to leave you with our blessing for the day. May you walk in the light of your creative power, and may your creations bring healing, joy, and transformation to you and the world. And so it is. Thank you for joining, goddesses. Keep shining and creating from your divine goddess essence.